As the development team works on creating the increment during the sprint, they meet every day for what's called a daily Scrum. This meeting is sometimes called a daily stand-up since traditionally the team stands while conducting it. The purpose of standing is to encourage the participants to be brief. Whether you implement the practice of standing during your meetings is really up to you and your team since it's not a rule specifically described in the Scrum Guide. Let's start with the meeting time box. The daily Scrum is at the most 15 minutes long, but like all the other meetings, it can be finished earlier if all the topics have been covered and there is nothing else to talk about. The daily Scrum is a meeting for the development team, and they are responsible for conducting it. The Scrum Master, as the owner of the process, needs to make sure that the meeting takes place, teach the developers how to derive value from it, and keep it within the 15-minute time box. It's worth mentioning that theoretically, the Scrum Master doesn't need to attend every daily Scrum. Of course, it's very beneficial if she does, but if she can't, the developers should be able to run the meeting without her. The same goes for the product owner. The meeting shows the progress towards the sprint goal, so it might be very helpful for him to be there, but it's not required. The developers can use other methods to update him on the progress. So, why do we have this meeting? What's the purpose of the daily Scrum? The daily Scrum is a key inspect and adapt meeting. It has several objectives. 1. To inspect the progress towards the sprint goal. 2. To inspect the progress towards completing the work in the sprint backlog. 3. To inspect the work since the last daily Scrum. And 4. To plan the work for the next 24 hours. We covered inspection and adaptation and how it's necessary to analyze the sprint progress to detect undesirable variances. Well, the daily Scrum is a perfect time to do that. This meeting is an opportunity to touch base, check the progress, and make plans. But I should also mention what the daily Scrum meeting is not. It's not the time for solving problems. If any problems are discovered, the involved developers can meet right after the meeting to discuss them. Notice that the Scrum Guide makes a distinction between inspecting the progress towards the sprint goal and inspecting the progress towards completing the work in the sprint backlog. If you remember, when we covered sprint planning, I told you that sometimes it might be possible for the team to accomplish the sprint goal without completing all the sprint backlog items. On the other hand, it might also be possible to complete all the backlog items without accomplishing the sprint goal. So both the progress toward the sprint goal and towards completing the backlog items should be monitored. So how do the developers conduct this meeting? Well, it's their meeting, so they can do it any way they want, as long as it accomplishes the set objectives. They can use a discussion-based format, or they can answer some leading questions. The Scrum Guide gives us an example of 3 questions that might be helpful. But remember, it's just an example. It's not a mandated rule. The developers can go around the room and answer these 3 questions. 1. What did I do yesterday that helps us meet the sprint goal? 2. What will I do today to help us meet the sprint goal? 3. Do I see any impediments that can prevent us from meeting the sprint goal? What's an impediment? It's a hindrance, an obstruction, a roadblock. If any impediments are reported, the Scrum Master should help the team resolve them, after the meeting, of course. The developers can take care of some of the impediments on their own. They won't always have to involve the Scrum Master. But there are some impediments that the Scrum Master will need to help them with. Here are some examples of impediments that may need to be taken care of by the Scrum Master. The manager asked me to work on something else today. I can't get a hold of the product owner to clarify this item. Here are some examples of impediments that the development team should be able to solve on their own with the Scrum Master's coaching if necessary. I don't know how to create the database structure for the product orders. I need help with debugging the payment system. Obviously, the Scrum Master won't be able to personally help the team solve their technical issues, but she can suggest solutions. For example, getting someone else to help with the work on the task, pair programming, finding an online training course, etc. The Daily Scrum is a perfect opportunity for the Scrum Master to coach the developers in self-organization and taking the responsibility for their work. But she shouldn't try to micromanage the team. For example, compare these two questions that the Scrum Master can pose. Jane, what happened with the task you worked on yesterday? You guys didn't ask Jane about the task she worked on yesterday. Do you think it would be important? The first question implies authority. The second question coaches the team in understanding their responsibilities and the Scrum process. So remember, a good Scrum Master will teach and coach the team. She won't directly tell them what to do. We'll talk more about the Daily Scrum in the next video. For now, let's review. The Daily Scrum should last 15 minutes or less. It is used to inspect the progress and plan the next 24 hours. It is not to be used for extended discussions or problem solving. The development team is responsible for conducting the meeting. To double your income and success, triple your investment in personal development and professional mastery.